The Great Lakes are the largest group of freshwater lakes on Earth. These lakes can be dangerous. Some remnants can still be seen from the 6,000 shipwrecks that have occurred over the years. I live in Kincardine in Bruce County. Outlined in red on the map, from the shore in front of my house, it is between 100 kilometers and 135 kilometers across to the shore of Michigan. The county includes the Bruce Peninsula, which extends into Lake Huron and separates it from Georgian Bay. The lighthouses of Bruce County filled an essential need. Let's look at the lighthouses of the Bruce. Starting in my hometown of Kincardine. It was settled in the mid-1800s by settlers who traveled here by boat. This lighthouse is located just a stone's throw away from the busy main street of Kincardine. After a climb up to the light, we have a bird's eye view of the harbor. In Kincardine, the hazards of the trip are remembered by the Phantom Piper, who reenacts the arrival of one family. According to the legend, back in 1856, on a cold October day, a small vessel left the port of Goderich, 50 kilometers to the south, carrying a family from the Isle of Skye in Scotland. It became lost in a storm as it neared Kincardine. Aboard the boat, Donald Sinclair, fearing for his family, fetched his pipes and began playing a lament. The sound carried across to the land, where another piper heard and played another lament in return. The captain of the boat, hearing the drone of the pipes, headed for shore, and the vessel arrived safely. The first light established here was a fixed red light at the end of the North Pier in 1874. It later served as a front range light. In 1881, the current building was completed, including a house for the lightkeeper. It serves as both a coast lake light and the rear range light. A range consists of two lights or buoys that provide the direction in which to sail when they are lined up, in this case, to avoid the breakwater to the north. The town of Kincardine was originally settled in 1848. One of the founders, Alan Cameron, built a log cabin and turned it into a hotel, remembered today by the historic Paddy Walker House, restored by a local group. Point Clark, to the south of Kincardine, is one of 6 Empire lighthouses that were built starting in 1855. At that time, commercial shipping traffic was increasing on the Great Lakes. Navigation aids like lighthouses were necessary for safety. Construction was hampered by the loss of supplies from boats sinking and due to supplies being swept overboard during storms. Another factor threatening bankruptcy of the construction company was difficulty and increasing cost obtaining the lighting apparatus due to high demand for the Fresnel lenses made in Paris, France. Hi.
Hi.
I'm looking for a tour.
Okay, well, we run tours every 30 minutes.
Okay.
And our prices are just down here, so our next one's
Good.
going to be at $230.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, I think I'll take one. Thank you.
All right.
These are some examples of the Fresnel lens design. The Fresnel lens was basically several individual lenses stacked, one on top of each other. These diagrams demonstrate how the lens functioned, gathering and concentrating light to a narrow beam so it could be seen at a greater distance. When we entered the small museum in what was the lighthouse keeper's house, we were welcomed by these images of past lighthouse keepers. These short histories are remembrances of the ships that were lost in the area. While visiting the Point Clark Lighthouse, I was surprised to learn of an underwater ridge going across Lake Huron. These bathysphere images, showing the depth of water in Lake Huron, indicate where it was. At some time in the distant past, it was above water, and it was used by First Nations hunters, as indicated by these hunting hides or campsites that were photographed by scuba divers. Point Clark was more of a cottage community. But has recently developed and grown into a residential suburb of Kincardine. Point Clark and Kincardine are only 20 kilometers apart. The next lighthouse to the north is on Chantry Island, about 45 kilometers north of Kincardine, and 1 kilometer offshore from the town of Southampton. In Southampton, the main street leads us to the beach, from where we can see Chantry Island and the lighthouse. This early undated image with fishing boats is probably from the early 1900s. Visits to the island are possible only by one licensed tour company. We traveled to it on this boat with a guide. It is operated by a volunteer group who refurbished and maintain the lighthouse, although the light is owned and operated by the Canadian Coast Guard. The Chantry Island Lighthouse, completed in 1859, is another of the Empire lighthouses. The island on which it is located is now a bird sanctuary, home to double-crested cormorants, great egrets, great blue herons, and seagulls. Touring the lighthouse keeper's accommodation, I was glad I did not live in that era. Southampton is located on the territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as is the entire Bruce Peninsula. At the fur trading post established here in 1818, Ojibwe hunters traded furs to European and Métis before the area was settled by Europeans around 1848. Métis were people of mixed Indigenous and European background. It's about 100 kilometers from Southampton up to Tobermory. We'll zoom in on the town so we can see the two harbors there. Big Tub highlighted in blue, and Little Tub in yellow. Little Tub Harbor, the commercial harbor, appropriately enough, is smaller than Big Tub Harbor, which has cottages on most of its shore. The lighthouse at Big Tub is much smaller than the ones already seen. It is located at the entrance to Big Tub on a rocky point. It is a bay and harbor that I have often used for overnight anchorage. From the lighthouse, looking towards the end of the bay, we can see where the tour boats are headed to see underwater wrecks in the crystal clear water. This aerial view shows the two wrecks here. These views through the glass bottom show the hull of the sweepstake and its hold. Several tour companies provide glass bottom boats that cruise over the shipwrecks in Big Tub as well as other locations. Flowerpot Island, so named due to the unique natural pillars found there, can also be visited by these boat tours. For camping, hiking the walking paths, and visiting the light station. There was a wooden lighthouse there in 1898, but it was replaced in 1968 with the current pyramidal steel tower topped by a light. Little Tub Harbor in Tobermory is the commercial harbor. But commercial fishing boats like this, seen in 2011, are no longer berthed here, since the Saugeen Ojibwe First Nation reclaimed their treaty fishing rights around the Bruce Peninsula. It is used by recreational sailors, tour boats to the wrecks, and dive boats that take scuba divers to locations in the National Marine Park. This harbor was useful when I sailed through here to refuel, both the boat and the crew. The crow's nest for fish and chips and beer, and the sweet shop for dessert. In order to see our next lighthouse on Cove Island, we need to take the Chi-Chi Mound Ferry to Manitoulin Island, the largest freshwater island in the world, or go to it on our own boat. The Chi-Chi Mound Ferry has its terminus in Little Tub Harbor. The ferry operates from mid-May to mid-October between Tobermory and South Baymouth on Manitoulin Island. The Chi-Chi Mound makes the 40-kilometer trip in about 1 hour and 45 minutes, 3 times each day during peak season. I mentioned Flowerpot Island previously. You can see where it is located on this map, and also Cove Island, where the next lighthouse is located. The Chi-Chi Mound route passes within a couple of kilometers of it. While sailing in the area, I was able to anchor near the island with my friend George for a couple of hours on a calm day, and we took a dinghy to the island to explore, but we couldn't enter the lighthouse. The Cabot Head Lighthouse on the northeast tip of the Bruce Peninsula is well off the beaten track. It marks a safe harbor called Wingfield Basin, with a range that marks a narrow entrance between the buoys you can see here. It was originally built in 1896. In 1968, it was demolished and replaced with the present automatic light. It has been under renovation by a volunteer group called Friends of Cabot Head Lighthouse, but it has been closed indefinitely for a number of years. My last opportunity to visit it was about 10 years ago, when we were able to tour the museum and walk the trails in the adjoining nature preserve. Heading down the east side of the Bruce Peninsula, our next lighthouse is at Lion's Head. It is a small community, halfway up the Bruce Peninsula, and also halfway between the equator and the North Pole on the 45th parallel. There is a well-protected harbor and an attractive beach and park for families. In the background is the Niagara Escarpment, with the lion's profile in the limestone rock formation, for which the town is named. This plaque, mounted on the lighthouse, remembers the last lighthouse keeper on the Great Lakes. On the south shore of this bay, the Bruce Trail leads us to a geological feature called the Pothole. On one of our visits, we did the short but somewhat rugged hike to explore it. The white blazes mark the main trail. The blue blazes mark side trails like this one. From a hole in the side of the rock face, I rotated the camera up to see the other hole in the top of the rock. From a lookout nearby, we could see the entrance to the bay. Cape Croker is a few miles south of Lion's Head. The drive into it was on land of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. Through woods for several kilometers. To a remote rocky point. It was the first of this design and also the first to have an electrically operated Fresnel light and a foghorn. I could find no images of the original wooden lighthouse that was built in 1898. This is the Cape Croker Lighthouse as it was in 1934. The current lighthouse, built on this concrete tower, was completed in 1902. From the rocky shoreline, we can see Hay Island and the eastern shore of Owen Sound Bay. This is Griffith Island, where our last lighthouse is located. As you saw, Griffith Island is close to Cape Croker, but we had to drive around Colpoys Bay and through the town of Wyerton to get a closer view of the island. Access to the Griffith Island Lighthouse is restricted because the island is privately owned by the Griffith Island Club as a social club for hunting, target shooting, and with a private runway and ferry service. As a result, the images here were all taken from the internet. The lighthouse and keeper's house were finished in 1857, as seen in this early photograph. It was the third of the 6 imperial lighthouses. It had a Fresnel lens with a fixed white light. Starting at the southernmost lighthouse in Point Clark and following the lighthouse trail around the coast of Bruce County is a pleasant trip. It is a short distance going up the shore of Lake Huron from Point Clark to Kincardine. And then on to Southampton, where a boat trip is available to Chantry Island with its lighthouse. After that, it's a long drive up the Bruce Peninsula to Tobermory, where the Big Tub Lighthouse is located. At this point, Highway 6 that we have been following turns into a ferry ride on the Cheechimoun, across to Manitoulin Island. From the ferry, Cove Island Lighthouse can be seen. From Tobermory, there is a roundabout route over to the east side of the Bruce Peninsula, and up to its northeast corner, where the Capit Head Lighthouse is located at Wingfield Basin. Working our way down the shore of Georgian Bay, we arrive at the next lighthouse at Lion's Head. And a little further south, the lighthouse at Cape Croker. And then Griffith Island. As a side note, in my research, I read that these lighthouses were called imperial lighthouses in an effort by the colony of Canada to have the government of the British Empire pay for them. Bureaucracy and politics are eternal, I guess. We have never tired of visiting these spots over a number of years. We love this little piece of paradise, and I'm happy to be able to share it with you.